So you're a billion-dollar company that pioneered the beer industry in the past, owning a sizable 15% share of the multi-billion-dollar market in America. You already compete in an insanely competitive world, creating uncertainty for your shareholders and causing fluctuations in how much you grow, so there is absolutely no room for error. You employ a vice president called Alissa to grow the company and increase revenue. She's a high-flying girl boss determined to leave her mark on the world and prove her mettle, but she decides to partner with one particular influencer who causes the company to lose $6 billion in a single day. This is the story of Bud Light and how they might have just killed their business.
Bud Light's marketing director has said the brand is in decline and needs to evolve and be more inclusive.
Bud Light's parent company Anheuser-Busch is facing massive losses after its controversial partnership with transgender activist and influencer Dylan Mulvaney.
That its stock price, I guess, has gone down between $6 and $8 billion.
Now, I want to quickly clarify that Bud Light and Budweiser are not the same brand, but they are owned by the same company. As the name suggests, Bud Light is a watered-down, lighter version of the original Budweiser. In fact, this comment sums it up perfectly. If you want to get more beer for your money, buy Budweiser, open a can, take a big drink, then fill the can with water. You now have a full Bud Light. But the two drinks essentially have their own brands and operate in their own right, with Bud Light being the best-selling beer in the entirety of the US in 2020. But according to Alissa Heinerschaud, this new daring vice president of marketing at Bud Light, the brand was declining and needed to target broader markets such as more women. Being stuck with frat bros and old white men was apparently bad for business, so she came up with a cunning plan. She decides to approve a marketing campaign with an influencer known as Dylan Mulvaney. Now for this video, we're going to use the pronouns this person wants, because if we don't, we'll be banned from YouTube, but that's a story for another day. So Dylan, or they, are a trans influencer who make content on TikTok about gender transitioning. A biological male, Dylan now dresses, behaves, and most importantly, puts out videos online about being a woman. They received huge levels of media attention, particularly with how polarizing the topic is. After amassing over 10 million followers on TikTok and over 1 billion views on their Days of Girlhood series, Dylan has partnered with companies in all sorts of spaces, and some of them have been rather effective marketing. From CeraVe to Nike athletic wear, Mulvaney has had many lucrative brand deals with huge companies to help them become more inclusive and promote the transgender community. But more importantly, they've been incredibly effective at profiting from those who want to support the community. The Nike brand deal, though, did see some backlash, with transgender athlete Caitlyn Jenner, of all people, coming out to bash the company for their decision to promote a transgender person as the face of women's athletic clothing. She said that instead that role should have gone to a biological woman.
Trans athlete Caitlyn Jenner slammed Nike following the release of the sponsored TikTok, which features Dylan Mulvaney is the name of the trans influencer. She took to Twitter saying, "It is a shame to see such an iconic American company go so woke. We can be inclusive, but not at the expense of the mass majority of people, and have some decency whilst being inclusive. This is an outrage."
But it seems no matter the extent of backlash, Dylan will continue these brand deals as they have turned out to be very lucrative. In fact, this just might be the best way to possibly make money online in 2023, as the Daily Mail has spoken to business insiders who claim that Dylan nets at least $100,000 a month from brand deals alone, and that they will easily net $1 million by the end of the year. And personally, as someone who runs and owns other YouTube channels and is well aware of the rates charged by influencers, these numbers are actually conservative to say the least. This sponsored ad that Dylan ran just a few days ago received 2.5 million views, and with a conservative CPM of $30, that means they pocketed $75,000 from this single ad alone. So it is safe to say Dylan will easily be pulling in millions from all these brand deals. Now, Nike and many other brands were lucky to not have been entirely cancelled and taken to the gallows, but Bud Light seemed to just tick the scales a little too far, and what they got was a short drop and a sudden stop. The best person to listen to here is the woman who caused this multi-billion-dollar crash in the first place.
You know, I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light. This brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light.
So Alissa, the first female to lead such a huge brand in the beer industry, decides to to target other parts of the market focusing on women. For some reason, that means partnering up with Dylan Mulvaney, someone who spent the vast majority of their life as a man. So it's April the 1st. Dylan Mulvaney receives a can from Bud Light with their face plastered all over it. Mulvaney takes to Instagram to share a video stating Bud Light sent them the can to celebrate their 1-year anniversary publicly identifying as transgender, and also announced a March Madness contest with the chance to win $15,000. Overnight, this racked up a ton of media attention, and people took to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok to give their oh-so-valuable take on the situation. There was a mass divide, with people leaning to the left supporting Dylan and people leaning to the right calling out Bud Light and even beginning to boycott the company. This was probably expected to at least some degree though, as there's always a divide when influencers like Dylan get these deals, but this time it went so much further than that. Just 2 days after the video was posted, musician Kid Rock posts a video shooting cans of Bud Light and the parent company, specifically mentioning their decision to partner with Dylan. Not long after this, Dylan partners with Nike modeling a sports bra and leggings, which also received backlash. Nike, of course, as many companies attempting to be woke do, tried to make a post unrelated to the Mulvaney drama, urging followers to be kind and inclusive, and stated they would delete any comments they deemed as hate speech or bullying. Approaching the middle of the month, the CEO of Bud Light's parent company released a statement on Instagram stating the company never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. They want to instead bring great beers to consumers across the nation. Without explicitly naming Dylan, it seems that the CEO is siding with what the consumer base thinks of the situation, but they aren't going so far as to actually apologize for the advert. Now, regardless of what you think of Mulvaney or the transgender community, a company has really just one purpose: to make a profit, to maximize value for the shareholder, and that usually requires the embodiment of what their loyal customer believes in, and going against that to pursue another market at the end of the day is simply a flawed business approach. And this situation has proven this statement, with a bar in St. Louis where the parent company is headquartered saw a catastrophic decrease in sales, with sales of Anheuser-Busch bottled products dropping 30% over the last week. The bar owner said, in Bud Light's effort to be inclusive, they excluded almost everybody else, including their traditional audience. Another bar in New York, known for its large gay community, reported Bud Light draft sales were down 58% and bottle sales were down a depressing 70%. And these are just the communities that are not particularly conservative. So what's going on in a place like Texas? Well, one Texas bar with a Bud Light sponsored darts league normally sells 3 kegs of beer or nearly 500 bottles during the weekly event, but they claim to have sold just 4 bottles this week, a drop of 99%. But not only has this pioneer of transgender rights and inclusivity caused sales to decrease across America, Alissa also managed to cause billions of dollars in share value to be wiped from existence. The parent company saw an initial decline of around $6 billion of value since the partnership, and this has since spiraled into double-digit billions being wiped from the previous uptick in value that Anheuser had seen. Before this controversy, the company was valued at over $132 billion, but at the time of me making this video, it sits at $113 billion. That represents a nearly $20 billion loss over the span of less than a month, not exactly something shareholders will be willing to ignore. Since this all went down, an unnamed source told the Daily Wire that no one at a senior level was aware this was happening. Marketing executives at Bud's parent company have since allegedly paused any more campaigns so they can implement a more robust vetting process for future projects. This unnamed source continued by saying that some low-level marketing staffer who helps manage the hundreds of influencer engagements they do must have thought it was no big deal. Obviously it was, and it's a shame because they have a well-earned reputation for just being America's beer, not a political company. And this is the broader issue at hand, not necessarily the ethics or views on transgender people or other political issues, but the idea that companies have started to implement inclusivity as part of their marketing. Brand identity is an important thing, and it's why after a certain point it's more about managing steady growth than trying to tap into new markets. The insider that said all of this was on the money. Many companies have given up on maintaining their customer values, and instead they're just pushing this meaningless word, inclusivity, and politically left-leaning ideas, as that's what everyone on Twitter and Reddit is these days. But who are Bud Light's target audience, and how do they feel about trans issues? Now, usually what comes to mind when thinking of beer is a beer belly, and by extension a middle-aged white man who isn't exactly a trans activist. But Bud Light's consumer base is actually not quite that monolithic, consisting of mainly young adults aged 21 to 34 and male. So you would think this age group would be the woke generation pushing for change in every industry, right? Well, clearly the men in this range don't care for any of this political pandering. They just want to enjoy their beer without a narrative being pushed down their throats or a biological man forced into their bathtubs. But then there are the more right-leaning conservatives who have opinions that actively oppose these trans lobbyists, and naturally they have boycotted the brand after seeing a trans person actively embody it. But regardless of what side of the spectrum people belong to, Bud Light drinkers are all opposing the destruction of a brand they've enjoyed for years, a brand that is now run by Alissa, who wants to destroy the fratty nature of Bud Light. Even if they are exposed to marketing, they'd prefer it to be quirky, sarcastic and funny rather than being woke and inclusive just for the sake of it. And Bud Light are now in a lose-lose situation because they either double down on Dylan Mulvaney and actively support them but polarize most of their established consumer base, or they backtrack and apologize for partnering with Dallin to save their current customers, but then the woke mob and woke media will come to set ablaze anything and everything Bud Light related. Now, Bud Light's story is practically identical to Hershey's, who almost went broke going woke.
My name is Faye Johnstone. I'm the Executive Director of Wisdom to Action. We can create a world where everyone is able to live in public space as their honest and authentic selves. See the woman changing how we see the future at Hershey's Canada.
They faced immense backlash from all sides of the political corridor and even caused the birth of new companies.
Our friends over at Hershey's, they don't even know what a woman is. They've hired a biological male to be the spokesperson for their Women's Day campaign. And it's the reason that I'm launching Jeremy's Chocolate. We have two kinds. She, her, and he, him. One of them's got nuts. If you need me to tell you which one it is, keep giving your money to Hershey.
The Daily Wire has now made it their mission to launch a company every time a flagship business goes woke with marketing. They did the same with razors when Harry's and Gillette decided to blur the line between genders, and now I'm making the bold prediction that within a couple of months, Jeremy will launch a light beer to knock Bud Light off its pedestal. Of course, the laws around this might make this hard to accomplish, but it all goes to show that going woke is not the goldmine people think it is, and more these days, it backfires incredibly badly, and in this case, literally.